MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, with my reaction to your reaction of the top 25. That actually makes sense. All right. Some of you love it. Some of you hate it. Let's respond to the comments. We've received 108 to the minute. So I appreciate the comments. Whether you're criticizing or supporting, it doesn't matter. Jump in the conversation and at least have a logical point. So many of you that criticized did actually have a logical point. I appreciate that. Some of you bailed out and just said, I suck. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You need to bring it. If you come to the voice of college football and you've got some criticism for me, you need to bring some logic, some facts, some backing, some substance, or you're going to be embarrassed. Okay, here we go. Let's start with Prince, 6'1", and if you'd like to, you can just go to the video itself. Go to the video itself, and you can go down the comments section with me. And again, we're going to start from the top with Prince 6'1", who says, "Get ready for war in the comment section again, LOL." That was apropos, Prince. I'm ready. Let's go to war. Tom Doyle makes absolutely no sense, he says. That comment, there's nothing wrong with that comment, but you've got to then explain why that makes no sense. Why my top 25 makes no sense. You may have an issue with it, but it makes perfect sense. It's based on the results on the field. It's not a perfect system. Obviously, there are no perfect systems, and there's always going to be debate about which team should be where. You may have somebody number 4 and I've got them number 6, but there's a logical conclusion to why I've got them number 6 and you've got them number 4. We can't make a distinction as to who's more right than the other person, but there's at least logic as to why a particular team is, let's say, number 4 for you and number 6 for me. My top 25 is not based on my perception of how good these teams are. It's not based on these games are coming up next month for Auburn, so they're not going to be able to hold on to that ranking. No, we do that too much around the groupthink, national media, and otherwise online, where we take our preseason perception and we hang on to it. We also let poor play on the field or what we consider not necessarily impressive play swing us too much. If the team is producing victories against quality competition, then they should be rewarded for that. And also we're taking again into account predictions, our perspective on what we think is going to happen. Let's let it happen first. Okay, let's get to the top 25 reaction. All right, Tom says makes no sense, absolutely no sense. Okay, Sean Wilson, performance matters. He's quoting me. Beating a team by 50 is not as impressive as beating a similar or lesser team by 1. Absolutely. The fact that Clemson is ahead of Ohio State proves that statement was a lie. This is something that I do on a regular basis here, is I do as much lying as I possibly can. I basically start my videos with a big lie, and then I just perpetuate it, and I build it up into a bigger and bigger lie. Anybody who's watched me on a regular basis will tell you that that's what I do all the time, is just lie. That's the substance of my channel. That's really the core of what we do here, is we lie. Okay, Sean, here's the deal. Clemson is rated right now at number 5 and Ohio State number 6 for the basic reason that although Ohio State has been dominant in basically all of its games and Clemson is not, Clemson has defeated better teams than Ohio State, and I'm going with the stronger wins over the more dominant wins right now. The likes of Indiana, Cincinnati, Nebraska being the best team, I guess. The best team Ohio State has faced to date. Maybe it's Cincinnati. Maybe it's Nebraska. Yes, they've blown everybody out. Actually, their weakest performance was probably against FAMU. Ohio State will be rewarded if they continue to win because they've got tougher teams coming. But for right now, Clemson has beat Texas A&M. And I know that Texas A&M is a disappointment this year, but they're still a mid-tier to higher-tier SEC team that is loaded with talent and athletes. And Clemson beat Texas A&M, dominated that game. They beat a decent North Carolina team. They beat what may turn out to be a decent Syracuse team, but although they've obviously stumbled out of the gate. Clemson has beaten better teams than Ohio State. That's all there is to it. And they have dominated in those wins except for one game against North Carolina. I thought about it. I certainly looked at it. So, again, there's no perfect system. There's no perfect ranking. I had to think about it. So it's not a slam dunk. Just because I've got Clemson at 5 and Ohio State at 6, you act like I've got Clemson at 2 and Ohio State at 21. That's razor close after 4 games. 4 to 5 games for each team. Johnny Bays, oh my God, Mark. Make a video explaining the intro and link it to the video. That would save a lot of time. All right, we just base it on the results on the field first and foremost, the performance and who you played. There's the explanation. Andrew Tweed, where's Michigan? Didn't they just beat Rutgers? 10-0. Tennessee is not number 1? How? Oh, this is the top 25 best teams. Yeah, I keep saying every week that I'm going to do a top 10 or bottom 10. I've done it once or twice per season. I should do a bottom 10 every week. That's a whole lot of fun, and Tennessee would be prominent. M. Stewart, I like everything on your rankings except Ohio State spot. I think they look like a number 1 team, dominant on both sides of the ball. M. Stewart, that's a valid point. I believe that they've been the most dominant team on both sides of the ball from week to week. They haven't played anyone. When they play somebody, they will be rewarded, and they will rise in the rankings. They will be placed appropriately. But for right now, Ohio State has not played anyone. I've got them at number 6. But certainly, yes, they look like the number 1 team. Just like Florida doesn't necessarily look like the number 8 team, but the results say that they've beaten 2 decent teams, and they're 4-0. They've beaten Miami and Kentucky. Tennessee, not necessarily a great win, but they dominated in that game, and I get flack over my ranking of Florida. I don't think Florida is the 8th best team in the country. When somebody asked me, you know what, Mark, give us who you think are the best teams in the country. Just who do you think are the best, regardless of the results, the performance, the dominance, the opponents. I had Florida at number 17. But they've earned much more than that. All right. Jesse Hughes, random person in the comments. So Jesse is quoting somebody else. Ranking teams based on what they've done makes no sense. Jesse, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming to my defense and trying to explain this to people. So somebody in the comments section elsewhere said, ranking teams based on what they've done makes no sense. Jesse comes back with person with average intelligence. Makes sense. Jay Jobs, don't mess with the voice of college football. Understand the selection criteria. Jay Jobs, thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Chase Jordan, it's literally impossible to do a poll without preseason polls influence this early. No poll should come out at all until week 8, but we are too impatient for that. So, Chase Jordan, you know what? You're right. But you know how much these rankings mean? Not just my rankings. You know how much everyone's rankings mean right now? Not a heck of a whole lot. They're fun. They're fun. We like to rank things. We like to list things in sports. We like to say these are the 10 greatest or the 10 worst or the 10 best. And these are the top 10 or the top 25. This is what we do in sports. So we continue to do it. It's going to matter at some point. Yes, right now it doesn't matter a whole lot. It's just fun. But you're right. There has to be some assumptions made. I state that all the time. But as we progress through the season, less assumptions need to be made. So in week 1, I ranked Auburn number 1 in the country after one game played because I thought they had the best win in the country. They beat Oregon. Well, I had to make an assumption that Oregon was a pretty good team. They may turn out to go 3-9. But I don't think they will. But I had to make an assumption. Then even in week 2, there's only been one game played. So we make a little less of an assumption. At least we've seen everybody play once. Yes, we need to make assumptions. Do you know what? Even in week 12 and 13, we're going to be making some assumptions because there's not enough overlap among these teams at the top of these conferences. They don't play each other enough. We have to make some assumptions. But yes, we have to make a ton of assumptions early, and then as The peel comes off the onion. We make less and less assumptions as more games are played, and we have more evidence, track record, resume. Adam, the sports guy, I hope you watch this video. Adam, I hope you're listening to me. You are amazing. In your many comments that you made, this is the first one I'm going to get to. You said you should also do a list of top winning programs of the modern era, say 1980 to 2019. Okay, that's a different subject. We won't get to that right now. I've got another video in which I looked at the top 15 all-time winning programs, what got them to this point in the last 10 to 12 years, and then projected on what this top 15 list may look like in 2030. So check out that video. Okay, Adam, the sports guy, big Miami fan, comes back and says you should put out the Mark Rogers Power Ranking Top 25 each week as well. Adam probably caught my video from a few weeks ago in which I, again, responded by saying, hey, these are what I believe the top 25 teams are. And so, for example, at the time, Ohio State had only beaten like two teams, two really bad teams, and I had them like number 16, but I believe that they're one of the four best teams in the country. I think five teams have distinguished themselves in my eyes as the five best teams in the country, and they are Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, and LSU, not necessarily in that order. But I have Wisconsin, let's say, at number 4 right now because I believe they've earned it. I do not think Wisconsin is one of the five best teams in the country. One of the top 10? Yes. But I'm going to rank them based on what they've earned, which are dominant victories for the most part. Matt Sweat, as a Clemson fan, I want to thank you for putting us ahead of Alabama and Ohio State. You are mighty welcome, Matt. Alabama's not beaten anyone. The best team they've beaten is Duke. And Ohio State got its best win in Lincoln against Nebraska. Who is Nebraska beaten? They've had their chance to beat a great team, obviously, or a near great team in Ohio State. And the second best team they played was Colorado. And they lost to Colorado. So Nebraska hasn't beaten any good teams. So Clemson has. North Carolina's pretty good. Texas A&M, better than that. The ever great Toa. Bruh, I understand the concept of what you're going for these. I respect the concept you were going for, and I love the concept of objectively looking at what teams have done in just this season alone and getting rid of past history. I really do, but you lose me every single time you start naming off teams. I lose you. Let's see. We've got a list of 25 teams. And I lose you when I list them off. Okay. What I'm going to try next time is I'm going to randomly name them. And you're going to have to guess where I have them ranked. So I may say number 17 first, and then I'm going to go to 6, then 24, then 19, then 4, then 1, then 8. But I'm not going to let you know which is which, and then you'll have to rank them, or you'll have to guess how I ranked them. You lose me every single time you start naming off teams. Somebody responded to this. Oh, boy, he's got a whole lot that he's saying here. I want to keep this concise, but you were looking at the stars or the stats in these games for the performance aspect of this. And are you really looking at the quality of opponents for each of these teams you name in the top 25? Yes, I am. All right, Exhibit A. Minnesota's ranked 80th in offensive yards in game, 40th in defensive yards per game. Okay. Understand, Mr. Evergray Toa, that rankings of yardage or any metrics at this point in the season are very flawed. Very flawed. You want to take Auburn's offensive and defensive metrics against the likes of Mississippi State, Auburn, and Oregon, 3 out of 5 games? Or do you want to compare those to Baylor's, where they've played a couple group of fives and FCS and Iowa State? Those statistics right now, and even by the end of the year, they're skewed based on strength of schedule, and especially after 4 games. very skewed, 4 to 5 games played. He cites that Florida is a false positive in their stats. They haven't played anyone proven to have a proficient offense nor defenses, and regardless of the stats, they've looked horrible doing it, especially at the Miami game. I don't care how anybody's looked. That's not my first criteria. My first criteria is winning games. Win the games. Then how good were the teams? And yes, there have to be assumptions made to a certain extent, but how good are the teams that you played? And then what was the performance? Let's say Clemson and Alabama played exactly the same 5 teams to date. Exactly. They played the exact 5 games. Alabama beat everybody by an average of 50 points per game, and Clemson beat everybody by an average of 3 points per game. Alabama would be the dominant team, and I would rank them higher than Clemson. But had Alabama, let's say, been that dominant in 4 of the games, but they lost to somebody, that result is huge. They lost a game. That's what we're evaluating here. That's what matters in sports. Winning games, losing games. First and foremost. Now in rankings, then you have to evaluate the level of performance, yes. Or otherwise we just have standings and we don't have a discussion about rankings. We just go by the standings like they do in the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA. They don't have rankings. Well, there's side outlets that have rankings, but they don't mean anything because the standings mean everything. Here we have rankings. Therefore, it should go based on wins and losses first and foremost, then performance, and who you played, of course. John Lucas, thank you so much. That's right. Auburn has the most important wins right now. Yes, they do. They have the most impressive wins, both in terms of the dominance of play. They went to Texas A&M, and they dominated most of that game. They won by 8. They played Mississippi State at home, who I believe is still a quality team, a 7 or 8 win team. And they beat Mississippi State by 4 to 5 touchdowns. 42-9 at half. They beat Oregon, who will contend for the Pac-12 championship most likely. Adam, the sports guy. Great job once again, Mark. Keep up the great work, my good sir. And I'll keep flooding your comments section. Thank you, Adam. Thumbs up and sharing those videos. Adam, people like you help build this channel and keep the content going. Without people like you, the content will cease. But right now we produce between 120 and 150 videos per month. I don't know who else does that. Yes, and let's keep racking up those wins. I don't know who he's referring to. Chris Brooks, love your videos. I appreciate the time and effort you put into them. The only bit of advice I may give you is to put your top 25 list that actually makes sense on a board and use crayons. For those that, in capitals, still can't understand what this list is all about, keep up the good work. Chris, another one right there that gets it. Thank you, Chris. Adam, the sports guy, coming back. Where is my American versus ACC video? Adam crunched the numbers, and he's got some metrics right there. Yes, it's called time, Adam. Sorry. Gregory Mitchell, I love the idea behind this, but not so sure about the metrics and how they are utilized. Where you hit a home run with this concept is identifying how the preseason polls create erroneous perceptions, and the following polls become not much more than a cascade of confirmation bias. Exactly. I'm not stating that my conclusions are perfect. We'll never know that. Nobody knows whose are perfect. It's just a judgment call based on the results, but at least it's a concept that makes sense. I have not seen this week's AP Top 25 poll, but I did see one of the matchups that's on television later this week on Saturday, and I was a bit curious once I saw the rankings for one of the teams and thought, I know who that team lost to, and I know that team's record that they lost to. I can't wait to look at this AP Top 25 poll because I think it's going to have some serious flaws in it, or at least one right there. And I may shoot a video on that. George, Florida beats Auburn. Sam, top 10 all out of whack. Again, deliver some substance. Make your debate. Make your case. Deliver it. Don't be lazy, or don't just criticize without having a point and running away behind your laptop or your phone. Sam, top 10 all out of whack. That tells me nothing. Bring it. Peter Young, how is A&M still ranked in the AP? I cannot defend the AP poll. Sorry, Peter. Go to those voters. Jason, the metrics that you use seem to fluctuate from week to week. 1 week, the on-field performance is key. Next week, it's but who have they played? That's fine, though. Maybe factor in the team's stats, too. It's something to be said for a team that is top 5 to 10 in all of them. The metrics do not change, Jason, every week. They are wins, losses, opponents, and performance on the field. The quality of play on the field combined with who did you play. If you lost a game, what was the quality of the performance in the loss? And in the wins, what are the wins and losses? Most likely, a 5-0 team is going to be ranked ahead of the 4-1 team. So check out my rankings. Mostly, unless that 5-0 team has played a weak schedule or maybe not performed that well against that schedule, and the 4-1 team lost to a very, very good team, like an Oregon to an Auburn, a Notre Dame to a Georgia, a Texas to an LSU. Jamie, Mark, come on. How is Oregon 14 with Auburn number 1? How is that? You got Texas and Notre Dame 9th and 10th. We haven't given up a TD since Auburn. You haven't played anybody. We had 4 of our top 6 pass catchers out for that game, and everyone knows we win if just a couple are healthy. No, Jamie. I appreciate your opinion. That's opinion. Let's separate fact and then logic and then opinion and then illogic. So what you are bringing has some logic to it. I believe that we would have won the game with 2 or 3 of our wide receivers healthy. You don't know that. It's not a fact. It's not a fact. It's not like it's just so inconceivable that Auburn could have possibly beaten Oregon if they had their full complement of wide receivers, because Oregon never loses to anybody. They haven't lost a game in 10 years. They don't lose to anybody. Okay, I get your point. But you got to play with injuries. And yes, I would take those into consideration. If you had your third string quarterback out there and only lost on the last play of the game, I would take that into serious consideration. But let's back off on the injuries and the excuses. It's a point to be made. Notre Dame and Texas have played extremely well against better schedules than Oregon. Texas has already beaten Oklahoma State in addition to taking LSU to the wire. Notre Dame took Georgia pretty much to the wire. They had the ball in Georgia plus territory at the end of the game, down by a score in Athens. Very difficult place to play against one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country. And Notre Dame has also beaten Virginia, a much improved Louisville team. There you go. Lucas, I don't believe Clemson should be 5, but I understand. Keep up the good work. Lucas, I don't know if that means Clemson should be higher or lower based on your opinion, because I've heard it from both sides. Frost Nixon, your SEC bias is showing still. Florida in the top 10, question mark. Have you seen Florida play? Okay, if you want the answer to that, maybe I'll do that each and every week. I'll let you know how much of these teams I have seen. Florida, I saw every play of the Miami game. I saw probably 90% of the plays against Kentucky. I did not see, nor would I waste my time watching Florida play UT Martin or play Towson. I saw probably, I would say, a little less than half of the game against Tennessee. So I've seen a substantial amount of Florida football, more than most. James Warner. James, I love you. You make comments to the channel all the time. We will dive into this one. I'm sure it's a good one. Goodness, Mark, what's with the love affair with Auburn? Yes, they dominated a very terrible Mississippi State team. If Mississippi State's terrible, James, and you're about to tell me how great Ohio State's schedule is, I believe we will tell by the end of the season that Mississippi State is at least as good as Nebraska. Okay. Yes, they dominated a very terrible Mississippi State team because we know that Mississippi State is terrible every year. But just because LSU was idle shouldn't eliminate them from being number one. Although I know, okay, back up here, James. LSU has beaten Texas. Very good win on the road. Won it by a touchdown, close game, but they proved to be the better team on that night. Most likely they are, period. Auburn has beaten two really good teams in Oregon and Texas A&M, and also a Mississippi State team that's decent. Do not compare LSU's resume to Auburn right now. Okay, although I know you've kept Auburn at the top spot for 2 weeks, Wisconsin, I feel, should be above Georgia because they beat a ranked team handily in Michigan. So that alone should elevate the Badgers above Georgia. Seriously? You've seen Michigan play? You've seen their performance? Their wins and losses versus what Notre Dame played against a Virginia and a Georgia and a Louisville? The Bulldogs' body of work does not say they should be ranked above Wisconsin. And yes, I know I'm an Ohio State guy, but Clemson's struggling over North Carolina, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Wisconsin against Georgia. Again, there's this much that separates these teams, James. We've played 4 games, 4 to 5 games for everyone. If I've got somebody at 5 and somebody at 6, don't get all in a huff about it. Understand it's that much of a difference. I believe Georgia has performed better than Wisconsin by that much. One's 3 and one's 4. I think Michigan is showing us that they may not necessarily be that good. Maybe they're like fringe top 25 good, 20 to 25. Georgia beat Notre Dame, who I think is a very quality team based on their results. Wisconsin played Michigan. They struggled against Northwestern and let the Wildcats back in the game. They could barely move the ball against Northwestern after a first drive score. Nicholas, right, Clemson and Wisconsin barely get by against unranked teams. Okay. Andrew, how foes Auburn have better results on the field than Ohio State? Really, Andrew? Seriously? You're comparing Auburn's resume to Ohio State's right now. I'm going to give you a second opportunity, a second chance to review that statement. Auburn beat Oregon, Texas A&M on the road, and Mississippi State. Ohio State beat Nebraska, Cincinnati. Really? String Gene, interesting. Got to play someone to be someone, which is why Clemson should not be in the top 10. Okay, again, North Carolina and Texas A&M are pretty good opponents. At least. I would say that North Carolina is one of the top 40 teams in the country, and Texas A&M is one of the top 20 to 25 teams in the country. Gregory, when you look at program win totals, how about also reflecting the reality of the field in this as well? In other words, don't toss out the actual wins that the NCAA later rather arbitrarily took away. Okay, you're commenting on a completely different video. Generally, Gregory, we comment to the videos that are displayed on the page. So you watch a video, you comment to that video. DG makes absolutely no sense. Again, DG and your egghead picture. Come out, make yourself known, talk to me. debate, discuss, challenge me on points of logic and substance and facts, not making critical comments with nothing else to say. Donna Fletcher, OSU should be higher than 6. Okay, Donna, got it. CCOT99, sorry, but if you put Wisconsin over Bama and Ohio State, that's insane. It's insane. It's just obviously insane because Wisconsin's beaten Northwestern and Michigan, and Ohio State's beaten Nebraska. Gregory comes back. His week 6 opinion poll. His opinion poll. I don't know what that means. It's his opinion. Okay. Did you take a poll, Gregory? Georgia's 1, Auburn's 2, Ohio State's 3, and then he's got the rest of them. And 12 replies. Well done, Gregory. Nice Guy TV. DeAndre, good to see you. I can agree with that list. Can I get love for Duke? Duke is better than Baylor. Again, this is not about who's better than who. Baylor beat Iowa State. Duke has not beaten anyone, and they played Alabama. And it's not so much that they lost to Alabama. That would certainly be respectable because Alabama's beaten everybody in sight forever. But Duke got annihilated by Alabama, and they don't have any quality wins. And Baylor just beat Iowa State, a good team. Baylor played worst schedule in history, but Duke only lose is to mighty Bama. And for the first 2 quarters, Duke shut down mighty Bama. Really, it was 42-3. DeAndre, it was 42-3. El Arximum Bay. Arnexum Bay. Bruh, this was horrible. Again, let's at least try to display some intelligence. Maybe that's why we don't get anything else out of you. Please try. Do your best. Write a coherent sentence or 2 or 3 explaining what could possibly be your point. Or maybe you're just being critical and you have absolutely no idea why or what you're talking about. And that's most likely the case. But if by the 1% chance that you know something about college football, something, just a little bit about college football, you've seen a game or maybe 3 plays, maybe you walked by a college football game in a Best Buy, then write me another sentence, not just, that was horrible. Brilliant. Brilliant. Gregory, enough games have been played that your top 10 at least actually begins to look pretty much how it should look now. Not only in terms of achievement on the field, but also in terms of what we think is the actual pecking order at this time in the early season. I've never kept up with your top 25 that actually makes sense in the past if you did it in the past. But I'm thinking that over the course of the year, these 2 ways of judging may converge more and more, always with the caveat that in the end, these methods of ranking teams remains whatever it remains. Yardfarks Lawn Care. If there are 5 teams better than Ohio State, I just saw in person, then we have 6 historically elite teams in 1 year. Yardfarks, I understand your judgment. You don't understand the process. Okay. Rammer Jammer, you did say rankings are for best performance on the field, right? Let's see. Clemson's awesome last-minute win versus North Carolina definitely deserves a top 5 position, or maybe it's for their best performance not covering the point spread against a 2-loss Texas A&M team that damn near lost to Arkansas, but keep doing you. Oh, and Wisconsin's best performance, 1 offensive TD struggles against a highly vaunted Northwestern defense, deserves number 4. Oh, that's right. They beat toothless Michigan. Clemson hasn't just played North Carolina. They played 5 games. And yes, they didn't cover the point spread against Texas A&M. Rammer Jammer, understand context. You might have a little bit more intellectual ability than this, but understand that Clemson dominated Texas A&M. They gave up a meaningless TD with 2 seconds on the clock that changed the point spread, so they didn't cover. It was 24-10. Legitimately, in meaningful time, Clemson gave up a field goal to Texas A&M. We can spin these games any which way we want in regards to then connecting them to another game. You understand? If you want to play that game, I can do it as well as anyone. Believe me. Believe me. If you want to say, well, so-and-so, that wasn't impressive because they only beat so-and-so by so-and-so, and that team only lost to da-da-da, and they only beat Arkansas by this. You want to do that. If you want to do that, we can do that. It's very easy to do. Make the connections. Pick out the teams that you want on your path of connectivity and show why either a team's really good or a team's not so good. You can take that in all sorts of directions. We will rank the conferences. Adam. Renee, you, sir, are totally delusional on this one. The Pac-12 is garbage top to bottom. Okay. Henzo the Razor, you should have LSU at number 1 as the victory over Texas at Texas is by far better than anything anyone else has done. Agreed. Yeah, let me make sure. Yeah, at Texas, certainly the Georgia win over Notre Dame, very impressive. That's certainly one of the 5 best wins in the country. Georgia, Notre Dame. Clemson dominating A&M. Yes, LSU at Texas.